Summer horror has a cruel little trick to it. It gives you sunshine, fireworks, long afternoons, green fields, vacation roads, all the things that make the world feel open, safe, and alive. Then it reminds you that the light doesn't protect you. Sometimes it just makes the nightmare easier to see. This week, horror history crawls out of poisoned swamps, rots inside a beautiful mansion, fuses flesh with metal, seals survivors underground, and lights candles in rooms where the dead refuse to stay quiet. So, check the picnic basket for insects, avoid strange family estates, keep your hands away from sharp machinery, and if someone tells you the bunker is safe, ask who's really in charge down there. Welcome back to This Week in Horror History, your weekly time machine through the creepiest anniversaries in film, TV, books, and games. I'm your host, Enrique Couto, and tonight we're talking about June 29th through July 5th. Coming up, radioactive ants turn a Florida resort into a drive-in nightmare. A modern Gothic novel makes the haunted house feel damp, poisonous, and alive. A Japanese cyberpunk cult classic turns the human body into screaming scrap metal. And George Romero traps the end of the world inside a military bunker. Then, right after the break, our deep-cut spotlight, an Italian Gothic shocker with Barbara Steele, medical obsession, and a house where love and death are way too close together. June 29th, 1977, Empire of the Ants opens in New York, and the summer creature feature gets wonderfully ridiculous. This is Bert I. Gordon, who, by the way, used to joke that was his name because it spells B-I-G, doing H.G. Wells by way of radioactive waste, Florida real estate scams, and giant ants who seem to understand that the best way to ruin a vacation is to become enormous. I mean, I was afraid enough of just the real estate scams. It's pulpy, strange, and deeply drive-in. Joan Collins, swampy danger, environmental revenge, and insects that make the whole outdoors feel like it wants its land back. I mean, I have enough trouble with camping already because I'm too close to the dirt. This is a little extra for me, but it is a classic, and honestly, I love Bert I. Gordon movies in general. I think he's got a great, he's got a great bit of chutzpah when it comes to creature features, so I don't think you can go wrong with a Bert I. Gordon film. And if you've never seen Empire of the Ants, you need to fix that. It's streaming right now with a subscription on MGM+, and of course, you can rent or buy it on Amazon Video and Apple TV. Maybe Fandango at home, but who can say? June 30th, 2020, Silvia Moreno-Garcia's Mexican Gothic is published, and modern Gothic horror gets a lush and poisonous new landmark. Noemi Taboada travels to High Place, a remote mansion where her cousin's desperate letters suggest something is deeply wrong. And of course, something is indeed wrong. The house is wrong. The family is wrong. Hell, even the air feels wrong. What makes the novel so good is how it takes old Gothic ingredients like marriage, inheritance, sickness, locked rooms, and family secrets, then lets them bloom into something earthy, fungal, and suffocating. This is haunted house horror where the house doesn't seem to just remember the past, it digests it. Oh yeah, and in my opinion, the Mexican take on Gothic horror has always been underrated, and this one is definitely worth adding to your reading list. It's available wherever you get your books, whether on Kindle or paperback. Check out Mexican Gothic, I promise you. You won't be disappointed, although you might be a little fungusy. July 1st, 1989, Tetsuo the Iron Man releases in Japan, and body horror gets thrown into a junkyard blender. Shinya Tsukamoto's Cult Nightmare is less a traditional movie than it is an attack on your senses. Industrial noise, black and white chaos, rust, wires, drill, panic, and the horrible idea that the body can stop being yours, one piece at a time. If that's not a commentary on aging, I don't know what is. It's short, furious, and completely unforgettable. The fear here is not that technology will replace humanity someday. It's that the replacement has already started underneath your very own flesh. I have always adored Tetsuo the Iron Man, and I didn't realize just how much I loved the film until Joe Bob Briggs showed it on the last drive-in a couple of years back, and I was just so enamored, and I had seen the film many, many times in my youth, but man, maybe it just hits different when you're pushing 40. I don't know, but I love Tetsuo the Iron Man, and if you've never seen the film or if you're a little nervous about subtitles, don't worry. People barely talk in this film. It's mostly loud and in your face and a little gooey while being metallic at the same time. And of course, you can watch it streaming on Night Flight Plus with your subscription, or rent or buy it on Apple TV and Fandango at home. On July 3rd, 1985, Day of the Dead starts in New York as a limited release, and George Romero's zombie apocalypse moves underground. Night of the Living Dead was panic. Dawn of the Dead was consumer satire. Day of the Dead is what happens after the argument is, well, already lost. This film is notoriously bleak. A handful of scientists and soldiers hide in a bunker while the dead own the surface entirely. But the real horror isn't just outside the fence. It's the shouting, paranoia, the chain of command, and the slow realization that the living may be even less manageable than the dead. And then, of course, you can't not mention Bub, Romero's strange, heartbreaking proof that maybe the monsters are learning faster than we are. I've always had a soft spot for Day of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is my all-time favorite film. I think it's not even my all-time favorite horror movie, just I love Dawn of the Dead. But the more I watch Day of the Dead, the more I appreciate its muted, reserved tone, and it's just so nihilistic. It's not necessarily a fun watch, but I do enjoy it, and they just put out a 4K UHD from Scream Factory, although there is some controversy about audio issues, and oddly enough, some of those audio issues are similar to what happened when the DVD came out back in 2003, I think it was. So you may not want to grab that right now. Hopefully there'll be a replacement or something along those lines put out, but Day of the Dead is absolutely one you want in your horror collection if you are an aficionado. And it's streaming on Peacock, Shudder, and Night Flight Plus with your subscription. And of course, you can also catch it free with ads on the Roku channel, Pluto TV, the Shout Factory TV channel, and Midnight Pulp. So lots of options to check out because Day of the Dead is a classic. And you need to give it another watch. And I'd never really thought about it before, but it is kind of summertime coded. Yeah. Our summer horror event reaches its final play tomorrow on Weekly Spooky. Summer of the Demon turns Camp Redfeather into a blood-soaked battlefield of football, revenge, cursed power, and a monster in a 00 jersey. Eddie Pee Wee Richter thought he finally had the answer. Get the jersey off the demon, expose the person underneath, and end the curse. But in the thrilling conclusion, Eddie learns the nightmare was never that simple because the demon was not just one monster. The jersey has passed from hand to hand, feeding on obsession, jealousy, rage, and the desperate need to win at any cost. And now someone has been hiding in plain sight, and they're ready to take the power for themselves. The truth behind our cast of characters is finally revealed, and when the jersey brings Greg back for one last night of hell, the field becomes a final battleground. One team, one impossible game, and one rule. Win or be dragged to hell forever. Now Eddie, Jessica, Charlie, and the survivors of Camp Redfeather have to face the biggest, meanest, most dangerous version of the demon yet. A monster built from love, madness, revenge, and pure cursed power. This is Summer of the Demon Part 5, the final part of our summer horror miniseries from Rob Fields. So make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast app so you can be here tomorrow to give it a listen. The jersey wants a champion. The demon wants revenge. And tomorrow, it's the final game from hell. All right, spookies, let's take a quick breather, but when we come back, we're opening the door on June 30th, 1962. A Gothic mansion, a dead wife, a new bride, and a doctor whose romantic interests are not just unhealthy, they are unspeakable. All right, spookies, we're back. So, let's get into it. Our deep cut spotlight. June 30th, 1962. The horrible Dr. Hichcock releases in Italy, and Gothic horror gets one of its most morbid house calls. Directed by Riccardo Frida, with Barbara Steele bringing the perfect candlelit, haunting presence, the film is Victorian melodrama pushed into forbidden territory. And that's really about how you could refer to nearly any Italian Gothic film after the 60s. A doctor remarries after the mysterious death of his first wife, but the past isn't resting quietly upstairs. It's breathing through the walls, waiting behind curtains, sitting at the center of a secret so ugly the whole mansion feels contaminated. And this is the kind of horror that it really doesn't need to run because it glides. It stares from the dark end of the hallway until you realize you feel guilty for looking back. Which is exactly why I wanted to make this a deep-cut spotlight. It's not just an old dark house atmosphere, although there's nothing wrong with that. I adore old dark house movies, and the 1960s Italian era of them is excellent. But this is about obsession, dressed up in lace, medicine, and mourning. A movie where love has curdled into ritual, and grief has become something rotten enough to wake the dead. When it comes to Gothic horror, Italy, they really knock it out of the park, and Barbara Steele always brings that eerie, penetrating hauntingness. I adore this film, so if you want to check it out right now, you may not have seen this one. It is a deep cut spotlight for a reason. It is available to rent or buy on Apple TV, Fandango at Home, and Amazon Prime Video. All right, my spookies, let's light a creepy candle for some horror-related birthdays, starting July 1st, 1952, when Dan Aykroyd was born. Comedy legend with a major paranormal footprint, not only thanks to Ghostbusters, but also his lifelong love of the weird. And believe you me, if you haven't listened to Dan Aykroyd just go off on tangents about aliens, ghosts, the CIA, etc., you're missing out. So happy birthday, Dan Aykroyd. This one I debated including, but I'm gonna stand by it. Born on July 2nd, 1947, is Larry David. Yeah, that Larry David from Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Now hear me out. While not exactly horror, he is one of the best anxiety machines I've ever witnessed. The man can turn talking to somebody at a gas pump into, well, something that'll pump your blood instead. And anxiety is half the genre in horror, so I say, happy birthday, Larry David. Pretty good. On July 3rd, 1962, Tom Cruise was born. Now, he is one of the biggest stars ever in cinema, but his genre-adjacent films are highly memorable, especially Interview with the Vampire, War of the Worlds, which, if you don't think that's a horror film, just remember the scene with all the red plants. Everything's covered in that red goop that's from human bodies. That alone makes it horror for me. And he has a career of running like something terrible is right behind him, so I think that's pretty horror accurate. So happy birthday, Tom Cruise. Born on July 4th, born on the 4th of July, 1910, is Gloria Stewart, a classic horror presence in The Old Dark House and The Invisible Man, bringing Old Dark House atmosphere and mad science pedigree to horror history, so I'm very happy to say happy birthday, Gloria Stewart. For our then and now, this week is horror in summer disguise. 1977 gives us nature striking back, oversized and radioactive. 1962 gives us gothic rot, where the past is preserved like a corpse in a locked room. 1989 gives us the body as broken machinery. 1985 gives us the apocalypse after the hope has burned off. And 2020 reminds us that the haunted house never really goes away, it just changes the wallpaper, moves to another country, and, of course, finds a new family to poison. Finally, for our weekly recommendation, we head back to July 4th, 1962, when Tales of Terror is released in New York City. If you want something classic for your week, cue up Tales of Terror. It's Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe, and Vincent Price, already a beautiful combination, and it gives you 3 Gothic stories with that perfect anthology rhythm. You've got guilt, revenge, madness, and of course, people making terrible choices in rooms full of velvet and shadows. Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone help make it even richer, especially when the film tips from elegant dread into wicked little bursts of dark humor. It's not only spooky, but cozy, and it's mean in the best kind of old-school horror way, the kind of movie that feels like a candlelit paperback cover with a skull just barely visible, hiding in the corner. You really can't go wrong with any Roger Corman Poe story, but this one I always enjoyed because you get 3 thrills for the price of 1, so to speak. And if you want to give this one a watch or a revisit, it's free with ads on Tubi, and you can rent or buy it on any major retailer like, of course, Apple TV, Fandango at Home, and Amazon Prime Video. Well, my spookies, that's your trip through June 29th to July 5th in horror history. Tomorrow, Wednesday, don't miss the 5th installment of our summer horror miniseries, Summer of the Demon. It's fresh and it's waiting for you right here on the Weekly Spooky feed, so make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget our new show Thursday Thrills brings you something new and creepy every Thursday to help you understand what dark corners of the world are worth knowing about. There's something scary for you every day of the week, so make sure you're subscribed. And of course, I'll be right here next week with another dose of horror history. So until then, remember, our days are numbered, because that's how we tell them apart. See you next week.